Okay, we're back on the house project. So today we're going to go ahead and stack the first row of 4-inch block. I can do the entire perimeter with one row and I'll be under all my windows. So we spent the last day or so cleaning out all of the debris that had accumulated over the winter. Cleaned out all the blocks where there was some concrete that had got in. And I stacked all my foam up. And we are ready to roll. This is the epitome of style. I don't care what anyone says. Got the first row stacked up. Next thing we gotta do is snap in our rebar. So I have a little bit left over here from the basement. We'll use this up and I'll go buy some more. All right, end of day one of the first floor build. We got 2 rows completely done. Ran out of rebar. Gotta get some more rebar in the morning. But got all of our windows started and got our rebar in, goes below the windows. Like this one here. Just worked out that this bottom hook here ends up being perfect for concrete coverage. So I zip tied those in just because, so the concrete doesn't knock them loose. Little discrepancy in this wall here. Turns out there should be about a 1/2-inch gap in this wall to make it an even 36 feet. So tomorrow morning, gotta pick up some more rebar and get working on row number 3 and 4. And once row 4 is on, we'll start doing the scaffolding. So it looks a whole lot different. Feels good. It's exciting. You say good morning. Say good morning. Let's go check it out. Here's a good boy. All right, so today I went out and grabbed some rebar for the walls because we ran out. I had to get a couple special rebar for over my 7-foot windows. So we're gonna go ahead and get those offloaded onto the house, and we're gonna start stacking the next row. So I think I'm gonna go one more row, and then I'm gonna build all my window bucks. So we took the flatbed van out this morning, got some lumber, local lumber yard, and we also picked up some rebar. So let's get that rebar unloaded. Want coffee? Get that coffee. Get it. All right, let's go. Go on. Come on, buddy. Who's your gobble? Who's your gobble? and around we go. All right, here we are, end of day 2. Everything's covered in foam. We've got 4 rows done. We've got 4 rows of rebar done. We got all of our rebar and ties in, and this is what she looks like now. So my dad's on his way to the hardware store to pick up a new saw blade because we have treated lumber, which is kind of a pain to cut, and all my saw blades are pretty old and dull. So he's going to grab a new saw blade, and we're going to cut all of our window bucks out at this point and install those, and then use those as our brace points so we can keep stacking. It's kind of windy, and I don't want these walls to come down. So in this corner here, we added some extra reinforcement because it's pretty short both ways, and the roof load, there's quite a substantial load on top of this wall that spans across here. It carries all the trusses in the living room, it carries all the floor trusses in the bonus room. So we're going to reinforce the heck out of that corner, as well as this corner, that corner, and a portion of that wall over there. So it's coming together pretty quick. Pretty pleased with it. We're gonna get this stacked all the way up, and we've left quite a bit of room in our control joints. There's probably a solid 3/8 of an inch in our control joints, so that way when we get to the top plate, we're going to spend probably a day adjusting everything and tying everything together so that it's really accurate, because this truss system is going to be a nightmare. So as true and as square as we can get the roof, the better. So got my flatbed van over here loaded up with lumber, got the saw set up. We're going to go ahead and start cutting all of the window buck material, and then we're going to do a little something special on the back side of that material to grab the concrete. And I'm taking the idea straight from Nudura, but I don't want to spend the money on their product, so we're going to make our own with a dado blade and a dovetail bit. So stick around, check it out. All right, so we got all of our 4 rows stacked, got our window openings cut out, and I'll show you what we did with our window bucks. I ran the dado blade down the back side, and then I used my router and a dovetail bit to make a big dovetail. So in theory, the concrete will get in there and help hold these boards in place. So got all of our window openings ready. I had to go pick up some more rebar. We're gonna set all these bucks in place and just put 2 screws in each one just to hold them so they don't fall out. We had to cut all the openings about a 1/2 inch wider just to make them easy to work with. So we'll go ahead and set these up into place. problem with treated wood is it wants to warp and bend about a 1/2 inch wider in the middle here. Another thing that we did when we built these is we put the bottoms inside the sides and we put the tops on top, thinking that the most concrete hydraulic pressure is pushing sideways on these, so that'll help keep these spaced apart, and that there'll be pressure on the top from the top piece, from the lintel. So I'm gonna go ahead around and get the rest of these window bucks installed. So it rained all day yesterday, but we still got out here and got after it for a little while. All that's really left is the rebar in the top row, the rebar over the windows, and common splices need to be braced. So one thing we learned when we did the basement was when we were building our scaffolding, not to screw everything tight together. It makes it safe to walk on, but unfortunately it was so tight that we weren't able to adjust our walls. So what we're going to do here is we're going to attach all the catwalk together, but only loosely attach it to the brackets. That way we can still do our adjustments. Everything seems to be measuring out pretty close, like within a 1/2 inch, but because of the complexity of the roof system coming off of the house, there's a doorway that's going to go where that window is, that goes into a large upstairs room above the dining area over here, and there's a big valley that goes down here, and there's a hip that goes over here, and there's a dormer over here. And I was talking to the truss manufacturer, and he basically said the further out it is, obviously with such a complex system, it's going to be a nightmare to get it all together. So we're going to spend a solid day probably adjusting everything, trying to get the top plate exactly to the design measurements. If my walls are slightly out of plumb, and I mean like a 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch over the course of whatever we're at now, we're got to be at 16 feet. I'm really not worried about it. So I'll show you how we did our catwalk brackets. We made these for the basement pour, and we put these together, so quickly because they were already made. We just screwed through the vertical. This is all nailed together, so you can just unscrew it and take it apart and reuse it. Probably get 6 or 7 uses out of them before they're trash, just because of the plywood. So we got our zonts and zuckles. We unfortunately don't have enough of the zuckles to do a adjustable brace in every point. So what we're going to do is we're going to hard fasten the corners with just a 2x4 screw to the floor. And if we need to, we'll put extra braces on the window frames, and we should be good. Now, just by chance, I thought I was going to have to add like 1.5 inches to the top of this, but it's kind of hard to see. I opened up the house yesterday, got my subfloor right there, and the distance between my subfloor framing and my top plate framing is 13 3/4 inches, and it worked out on the money exactly. We're about 3/8 of an inch difference on the back, so we might do some adjusting in the wood to make up for that difference. But overall, we're pretty good. We're constantly fighting error, as you do when you're in construction. So wood framing, we'd be right on the money. When we framed this up, we were exact, not even an eighth out. But this is a new construction method for us, and we're trying, new techniques, and we're learning. So I'm gonna get you an update when we're ready to pour. It looks like we're gonna pour concrete in about 5 days. So I got plenty of time to get this buttoned up. Gonna get our catwalk done, gonna get all our common splices joined together, and we gotta go around the outside of the building with some wood bracing as well. So I picked this up on Facebook Marketplace for real cheap money. Has really come in handy. It's an old lift, and it's 2-wheel drive, but I've been able to drive that around the house no problem. I picked it up from a guy who used to work with it in a factory. It spent most of its life inside, and it's got new batteries, new electric motors for the drives, and it's got a new charger. So just that alone is probably more than I paid for the machine. I bet the motors were $7,000 or $8,000 probably, and I picked up the whole machine for $7,000. So I'm going to use that, do this project, and it's cheap enough I might just keep it. I might rent it out, but obviously I'd have to get it certified if I do that. So that's come in handy. So all right, I'm going to get after it, and we'll see you in a few minutes. We drilled 4-inch holes in our window bucks, so that we can observe the concrete flowing and filling the cavity up. And you can kind of see here my dovetail that I cut in all the way around the window. Okay, so here we are. It's the day before the pour. We're pouring tomorrow morning at 7:15. We've got the entire bracing system set up, and we got all of our rebar done. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what we did. So I'm borrowing these brackets from a friend of mine. He's letting me borrow them, and they come with these turnbuckles here to adjust the wall. But he has more brackets than he has turnbuckles. So we had to set all of our corners firm and use the turnbuckles out in the open so we can adjust the wall as we pour. We set our corners firm. We built our catwalk. Up here we decided to not screw it down every place, just occasionally. It allows the wall to move freely. We got our vertical and horizontal bracing for all of our openings done. We have all of our scabs of wood on the sides, and we foamed around anything that was bigger than about 1/4 inch. We foamed our common joints, and so the pump truck's gonna get here around 6:30 tomorrow morning, and we're gonna pour this upper wall, and it's gonna be the last pour for this build. The gables that are going here and here and here, we're just gonna frame out conventionally. After I get my trusses, that might change, because I have a lot of extra block left over because I ordered way too many. So here's some detail on the lintels over the doors per the schedule on Nudura's website. We bent up these stirrups. There's a top and bottom bar. All of our corners have one bar except this one here, because there's a doorway within 2 feet and there's a window within 2 feet. So this corner is loaded with rebar. We tied our verticals in just so they wouldn't move on us. We have a string line set up. I'll show you how that is. So our string line, we have wrapped around 1.5 inch block of wood. I came in from the corner a couple webs because these corners kind of bow in, so that as we pour our wall, we can adjust it as we need to. Everything's within about 1/4 inch right now. It's all leaned in about 1/4 inch. It's all leaned in about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch so that we can push it out instead of trying to pull it in. All of them ended up pretty straight. The whole top plate's within about 1/4 inch. Our biggest error was across this span here, which we were able to get the adjustment almost completely out of it. So the top string line here is just this short wall, and the bottom string line is overall, and as you can see, we're within about 1/8 of an inch overall straightness. Again, in the corners, these are pretty high bearing corners. There's a big truss that sits here that carries the whole roof over the living room that spans across to over there. So I put some extra reinforcing in this corner. We tied our bar in the center of the top here as opposed to down in these clips. And the reason for that is our stirrups are only, 6 inches tall, and we wanted the bottom bar to be centered over the door. So I made a jig in the garage to bend all these stirrups. We had 80 of them to bend, so it took about 20 minutes to make a jig out of some steel, and it took us an hour to bend all those stirrups. If we would have done it with the rebar bender that I bought, it would have taken way too long and they would have been inconsistent. These are all exactly the same. You could stack them up on top of each other. So the biggest truss in this house is actually going to sit on this part of the building here in the corner. So after we put our concrete level here, I'm going to cut into the building here and put a bunch of jack studs in the wall there. We have a massive truss, 42 feet long. It's a 3-ply. It weighs like 2,000 pounds. That carries all of this roof, or well, half of it, because half bears on the wall. So half of the roof here, and from this point to over here to this corner, half of this roof load, with one post in the middle that's going to go down through the floor and line up with our posts in the basement, hopefully. And then we have another massive truss that sits on top of this plate and goes to that corner. That carries half of the living room roof load, half of this roof load, along with half of an upstairs floor load over here. So I didn't take as much video of us building this because it was virtually the same thing as I did on the basement level, just a lot more blocking. We didn't build a railing up here because we're only about 4 feet off the floor, and I was kind of running low on lumber, so we didn't build a railing. We're just going to be cautious. I did do a double plank walkway, so the pump truck guy and I should both be up here able to walk around safely. He'll be 6 feet away from me probably, and I'll be running the end of the chute. We got a couple people coming over to give us a hand with vibrating. There's so much rebar in these walls, and it's only a 4-inch wall. We have a vertical every 30 inches, but there's a lot more verticals than that. For example, this is beside a window. You can see the window buck down there in treated lumber. We have 2 verticals on each side. Down below the window, we have 2 horizontals. We have 2 horizontals above the window. We have at least 6 stirrups over the big windows. Those windows have 12 stirrups over them. So there is just a ton of rebar that needs to adhere well to the concrete. But like in this corner, for example, if you were to try to stick a vibrator down in there, you'd probably lose it. So they do sell an external vibrator for ICF walls. It's about $2,000, and there's none around here to rent. So I will show you what I did, because I wasn't about to spend that kind of money. And our concrete for next week got pushed back because of rain in the forecast, but it looks like tomorrow, which is Saturday, at least until about 4 p.m. we're going to have clear skies. So 7 o'clock in the morning, that should give the concrete plenty of time to set up before it starts to rain. So I called up Granger and I asked, well, I went on their website, and then I called them to see how long it would take to get this in, because obviously I needed it the next day. So here's what I came up with. So this here is a 110 volt, 164 pound vibrating motor. And I got a couple barn door poles. I put a piece of heater hose on top of it, just as a little cushion, wrapped it in electrical tape. Did the same thing on this side. But I took the electrical feed that goes back here into the start capacitor, which is in this. It did not come with a plug-in, so I bought that at Home Depot. Put that in, and then the problem was, when this is plugged in, this is on. So what I did was, I got a momentary switch right here, basically like a drill. So what you can do, so I'm gonna go ahead and plug this in here. So what you do is you hold this on the wall and you pull the trigger. So this plate's 30 inches wide, it's 13 inches tall. I had the shop that I got it from, they cut this off the end, and I was like, hey, maybe I'll just double that up. And he welded that on there for me right away, which was great. I know those guys. And then check it out on this side. I got some machine head screws and I countersunk them. So I had him bend up the corners just a little bit so that you won't dig it into the edge of the foam. So I can have someone on the wall below me when I'm pouring, and they can just go up to it and go. A little vibration. So I built this for 360 bucks. It took me about, I don't know, 45 minutes to get everything lined up and drilled and set in place. So you can build this for that kind of money, or you can go buy one for $2,000. So I built this. Okay, it's the night before the pour, and I'm just doing some final checks. I got my laser set up, and I got it cast in the laser around the building. And it looks like on this wall over here, we're about a 1/4 inch down on the block. In the center, we got like a high point in the middle here. So, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn the laser here to see how different. All right, so what I was really concerned about was where it matches the existing house. So let's take a look. All right, I'm gonna raise my laser up a 1/2 inch, and I'm gonna shave the top of those nubs because that's where my roof line is meeting up with the existing roof, and I don't want there to be a 1/2 inch dip in the plywood there. So I'm just gonna adjust that one little portion of wall and call it good. Well, I wish I could give you guys a better shot of that, but it's dark out and I need it to be dark in order for me to see the laser lines. So I think the tool that I'm going to use for this is a belt sander, and I mean, it should make really fast work of this. So I'm going to go ahead and do it, like I said, just on this one section. I'm going to ignore the hump in the middle of the long wall because we're talking a 1/4 inch, 5/16 of an inch over the course of 36 feet. It's unfortunate that's right in the middle of the wall, but no one's ever going to be looking at that and see that except you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and get my belt sander out there and just take care of this. So I ended up using this. It's a planer, and oh my god, it works so great. I wish I could show you how nice this works with that laser beam, because If you get it just to the right height where you're cutting the laser beam in half, it lights up the whole top of the nub on the block, and it casts the line onto the block behind it. And when you have it right on, you have like two very wide green lines right across the top of the wall. It's so obvious when you've hit level. And it was so easy that I even took out that hump that was in the middle of the long wall. It took me like 4 or 5 minutes. So the only thing I didn't really get was up against the building because it butted up against it. So I'll do that last little bit with a little handsaw. And I mean, for 20 minutes of effort, that was totally worth it. So yep, the planer works really well for that job. We're gonna move along when we get to the bottom of these windowsills.
Yeah.
We're gonna put a little bit above each side so it'll pump under. But that's what I want you to tell me to move along.
All right, when it gets to the sill, the bottom of the windowsill. All right, got it. Too easy.
You have extra batteries? Okay. Yeah, you are putting that, I guess.
Oh, you're fine.
Thank you. Can I do that?
You're gonna have to go around and hit it with a It's not going in. was the last time you washed it? It stinks.
I haven't washed it since I bought it.
Oh my gosh.
Good.
I think that's no chance to blow out
I
now.
think we're good now, yeah.
Wow, look at that nice car, that GTO. me just kind of scrape the top, or you want to keep it just overfilling? I guess you can do that after the fact when it starts drying. Fill up a couple 5-gallon buckets. Yeah. Just so you, when you're using it off, you have extra fill. Good idea. Maybe even 3 if you might get a few. Oh yeah. Hey, what's your buddy's name over there? You can start hitting the walls with the flat panel going around. Yeah, the upper wall.
He should be good with that internal vibrator, honestly.
Just to, not too much though, just to give it this space and make it smooth out.
Okay, perfect.
Filling up real good.
Let it set for like 30 minutes, and then you can start working it a little bit.
It's fine, Dad. No, I'm just happy they came out on Saturday. At the end, yeah. That was a pretty long day. The pour went excellent. The truck showed up on time, 20 minutes late or so, but that's on time for concrete. Pump was here right on schedule as usual. We had one little problem above one of the windows, which was very minor. I'll show you what we had to do. Basically what happened was the foam kicked out on the bottom. And I mean, it's only a foot tall, so we just put the wood on there and put some screws to it. And then, to be honest, I have no idea how this was overlooked. Just so many decisions have to be made when you're putting all this stuff together that sometimes stuff slips by. But we were supposed to attach a 2x4 to the building here along this foam, and look what happened. See how it's bent, blown out? Basically this is pushed out. Maybe hard to see on the camera, but basically from the floor all the way up to the first block down from the top, that whole thing pushed out. And that could have been prevented with a $3 piece of wood, but that's really all that happened. And in that corner we'll just end up cutting the foam off, which isn't a huge deal. Kind of sucks to lose the insulation right there, because that's the that's the master bathroom right there. That's going to be right next to the jacuzzi tub for my wife. So I mean, if that's all that really happened throughout the whole thing, then I'm pretty happy. We went through after the concrete was in, the truck was gone, went through, and we pushed all the walls into position. We're within an eighth of an inch all the way around. Everything just went pretty well. It's done. Concrete's curing. We're gonna give this like 3 days to get nice and solidified, maybe up to 7 days, because we're getting quite a bit of rain this upcoming week, and that's going to allow this to get nice and firm. We're going to leave all the scaffolding right up so that we can walk around to set our trusses. So the next step, after we give this some time to cure, we're going to go ahead and set our top plate. And I elected to put my top plate completely on top, extending beyond the foam. So I know there's going to be a thermal bridge there, but I thought that was going to be a lot easier for us than trying to set it down in 1.5 inches, especially because I needed the full 12 inches for my lintels. So, and then we had a lot of people show up to help, and then the truck took off, and I had a couple people stick around, and they helped for a little while, and they felt like they weren't getting a whole lot done, so they went ahead and took off, and that's fine. I mean, I'm really happy to have the help that I had, but really the work started when the trucks left, because concrete was in the walls by probably 10:15, and we got done working out here at about 3:30. So everything that we did after the pour took way longer. So what I learned on the first pour was clean the walls off. So we spent all of our time getting all the gunk off the walls, inside and out. My dad spent a good amount of time troweling the top. He did an excellent job setting the anchor bolts. We're like 4 anchor bolts short, so we'll end up putting some red heads in over there and cleaning the outside of the wall. And then what took a really long time, and this didn't happen in the basement, because in the basement we had gravel, so it didn't matter if there was rocks on it. But up here we had all the cement and all the pea stone and all the sand all the way around the perimeter of this. And my big concern was that once the water drained away, there would be cement that maybe didn't cure because it was so saturated with water, but just would be a lot more difficult to remove. We probably spent 3 hours just hosing and sweeping and squeegeeing. I actually drained my well. I only have like a half a gallon a minute on my well, so I have 400 gallons of storage above my pump, but once you pump all that off, it doesn't replenish fast enough. So we got it basically completely cleaned up. And at the very end, we had to wait a little bit for the well to catch up. And then I went downstairs and I hosed off the walls down there. And there's a half inch of water on the basement floor, so that's never going to cure down there. So all in all, this pour went excellent. I'm very happy with it. The walls ended up pretty darn straight. There's a couple hooks again in the long walls. We didn't put the top board around this time like we did in the basement. And that's one, because we kind of ran out of lumber because we had so much more lumber around all of our windows, and two, because I didn't really think it was entirely necessary. It probably would have helped keep them straight, so it might have been worth that investment for a few extra pieces of lumber. But as we sit now, we're gonna let this cure. We're getting rain for the next 7 days, so I'll probably jump back onto the dump truck project and tinker away at that. And then my trusses should be coming in 2 to 3 weeks, which is unfortunate that they won't be here a little sooner, but that's also going to give me time. I have a contract I have to fill right behind my house. I have a 150-foot road extension that we're doing. So we'll get back on the ICF house soon. It's the end of April right now, so I don't know when this video is going to make it online, but we're making some progress, and it's looking pretty good, and I'm pretty happy with it. And thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.